Welcome back into another edition of On the Record, where we talk with people in the know about upcoming opponents for the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks this weekend opening a 3-game series with the San Diego Padres, and who better to talk about San Diego Padres than Sam Levitt, who does their pre- and post-game coverage over on the radio side on 97.3 The Fan. Sam, thanks for hopping on. Really appreciate it.
Jesse, great to be with you, and excited to watch the Diamondbacks and Padres play once again in 2024, starting this weekend.
Padres D-backs pretty much in the same spot early in the season. Padres have a game on Arizona right now, coming in at 15-17. The Diamondbacks at 14-18. It doesn't seem like things have been great for San Diego recently. They did just win a series over the Cincinnati Reds, but they got swept over the weekend, last weekend against the Phillies. They split a series with the Rockies, which is never something that you're looking to do or probably satisfied with. What are the vibes here early on with the Padres in 2024?
Yeah, I think things were going pretty well until the final game of that series in Colorado, the series you alluded to, where they had a chance to take 3 or 4 from a Rockies team that obviously hasn't been very good so far this season. They had a 9-4 lead heading into the 8th inning in that series finale, chance to take 3 out of 4, chance to stay a couple of games above 500. So all in all, at that point, things had not gone perfectly, but I think had gone pretty well considering what the record was and the really tough schedule the Padres have played to start the year. But then they end up not winning that game at all, comes crashing down in the 8th inning in Colorado. Rockies have a 6-run 8th inning. They win that game 10-9. And that was the start of a 5-game losing skid that carried into the beginning of this week before the Padres won a game against the Reds, and then ultimately one on Tuesday, one on Wednesday, and won that series against Cincinnati. So I think things here today are looking better than they were at the start of the week, certainly after Monday night, where the Padres at one point against Reds left-hander Nick Lodolo, they had 18 in a row retired, 23 in a row retired at one point in that game. In total, it was, things were kind of ugly on Monday night when it was a 5-game losing skid, and the offense did what it did so quiet on Monday and really outplayed by the Phillies during the weekend before that game on Monday. So a 5-game skid after Monday, 4 games below 500. Things were not looking great, but to their credit, they have bounced back a little bit this week, won a couple in a row, and I think the vibes are a little bit higher than they were on Sunday and Monday, because I think, the feeling I got from the fan base after Monday was not a great one. Things were looking kind of bleak, and all of a sudden, I think there was a feeling that there was a real danger for this to maybe get out of hand, considering the tough schedule, considering the fact that they just weren't playing very good baseball and were in the midst of a 5-game losing skid. So I think all in all, when I go back and I describe where they were that final game of the series in Colorado, the 5-game losing skid, now winning 2 in a row, beating what I think is a pretty good Reds team, I think it's been up and down so far. I think there have been signs of encouragement, good indicators that this team is a different one than the team that the Padres had in 2023. But there have also been some tough stretches so far, and some things that I think could definitely be improved. So I think all in all, look, you'd like the record, in early May to be better than 2 games below 500. There's no doubt about that. Every fan would like that for their team. But, I think there's been some ups, some downs, and we'll see what the next few weeks hold, because the Padres do have a really tough schedule the first couple of months going into really early June.
When I think about the Padres, I of course think about Tatis and Machado and Bogaerts coming into this season. It seemed like even with Juan Soto no longer being there was still quite a bit of star power in this lineup and a chance to be in the mix in the playoff race in the National League. Looking at some of the numbers with those guys, none of them have started especially well. It doesn't look like. Bogaerts a 571 OPS. Fernando Tatis a 750 OPS, which we've certainly seen him do far better than that in years past. Manny Machado a 685 OPS here to start the season. I imagine for the Padres, Sam, they need those guys to produce, right? Everything sort of has to start with that trio being as good as it can possibly be.
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head. It is all about those three guys. And that's not all that dissimilar than what it was last year, right? Except last year we
Yeah.
added Juan Soto into that mix. So it went from being a big four to a big three of Bogaerts, Tatis, and Machado. I think each has a little bit of a different case, although I'll first start with the macro of those three. To your point, Jesse, they need those guys to play like absolute stars, and they need those guys to carry this team and this lineup on a day in, day out basis. That's what they were brought here to do. And they need to do it because I think that's obviously a huge key to the Padres' success in 2024. So, with each of the guys, I think the cases are a little bit different. In Bogaerts' case, it's been a really slow start. There has not been much in the way of slug as far as extra bases. He had an up and down first season in San Diego, had a great start to his season, start to his Padre career last year, had a great finish, but there were a few months in the middle that were not great. And he was also dealing with a wrist issue that contributed to some of that, but it has not been a great start for Xander Bogaerts. He was batting leadoff for a while. They've dropped him down now to the number 5 spot. He got a day off on Wednesday, so he's still trying to find his stroke. But I think there is belief throughout the organization that he'll be able to find it. As far as Fernando, it's a little bit different. He's hit the ball pretty hard and doesn't have a whole lot to show for it. If you go look at some of his advanced metrics, just go look at his baseball savant page. You'll see a lot of red and
Yeah.
bright red.
Yeah, I
Um,
noticed that.
yeah, I mean, I think for him, it's been a little bit unlucky. The at bats as of late haven't been great. He's doing a lot of chasing, and just the last couple of weeks, the numbers have not been great, right? But I think with Fernando, I think to me, he's just going through a slump, and I think he's still hitting the ball for the most part pretty hard, and hopefully he can break out of it here quickly. And then for Machado, it's been up and down. He had a stretch where he was swinging it really well, after a stretch where he wasn't. Now he's cooled off a little bit again. For Manny, remember, he's coming off the elbow surgery last fall. He just started playing third base again. He was DHing exclusively for a while as he went through his throwing program and got back to playing third base. So each of them has a bit of a different situation when you look at the numbers and some of the early season struggles. And I think Manny's had a couple of really good stretches as well. And I think with Manny Machado, we've learned that, I don't know, somehow you look up at the end of the year and the numbers are there, right? And, in 2022 in particular, he carried that team for months. And we know with Manny, he can turn that on at any time, and it can be pretty impressive what he'll do on a really hot stretch. So I think the bigger picture, though, Jesse, is, like I said at the start of the answer, they need those guys to play like stars.
Yeah.
It still is kind of a top heavy lineup, even without Juan Soto. And they need those guys to carry the way. And if those guys play like they're capable of playing, I think it makes an enormous difference when you talk about the ceiling of this team. It's really important, though, that the big three plays like the big three. There's no doubt about it.
I guess maybe we should be talking about a big four in San Diego, given the way that Jurickson Profar has started this 2024 season. Looking at the numbers, he's been, it looks to me, far and away the best position player on the team so far with an OPS well over 900. What's going on with Jurickson Profar, Sam? How is this happening?
He's been terrific. I mean, Jurickson is somebody who loves playing in San Diego. He loves being a San Diego Padre. I think when he was in Colorado, I think it's pretty clear that he missed it in San Diego. And
Hmm.
for whatever reason, it's just a place that feels like home to Jurickson Profar. And that's not just by what he says or the impact he has in the clubhouse, which I think is significant. He has a big impact on that clubhouse, and this is going back to 2022 and before that. So he certainly is a great clubhouse presence, and he's very close with a lot of the guys in there. But for whatever reason, he seems to play his best baseball when he's a San Diego Padre, and it has been to another level to start this season. I mean, look, in the grand scheme of a baseball season, is 30 plus games a huge sample size? No, but it's also not the smallest of sample sizes when you're 100 plus at bats in, and he's hitting 342, I think it is, entering today. He's got an on
Wow.
base percentage above 400. He's got an OPS above 900. He was 4 for 4 on Wednesday. I mean, ever since being moved to the leadoff spot, he's been tremendous, and that's coming off what was really good baseball before being moved to the leadoff spot. So hopefully he's able to keep it up. I mean, he's been, to your point, the team's best overall hitter so far in this lineup. So pretty good deal for a guy you signed for a base of $1 million. So he's he's been great, and he loves playing in San Diego, and it shows with the way he plays on the field, and he has been terrific. I think now the question is, how long does it last?
Yeah.
And is there a struggle at some point? But look, to his credit, he has not slowed down at all. He's only got better over the course of the last couple of weeks. So I think for Padres fans, they're just hoping the ride continues, and who knows? I mean, I tweeted it the other day. I mean, right now, Jurickson Profar legitimately is playing at an all-star level. If there was all-star voting right now, I think Jurickson Profar is one of the starters. That's how good he's been. So let's see what happens over the course of the next month or two. But yeah, to this point, he has been not a surprise in which the way he carries himself in the clubhouse and what
Yeah.
he means to the soul of the Padres. But yeah, as far as the numbers on the field, I don't think any of us could have expected him to perform at this kind of level for now a month. It's been pretty cool to see.
Looking at the pitching matchups for this weekend, we have Slade Ciccone against Dylan Cease tonight. Of course, Dylan Cease, biggest acquisition of the Padres over the offseason, no doubt about that. He's been spectacular so far. On Saturday, we get Michael King, who's the headliner of that Juan Soto trade as far as what was coming back to San Diego. He goes against Brandon Pfaadt. Pretty exciting matchup there of a couple of young, good starting pitchers. And then we get Matt Waldron, the knuckleballer for the Padres, going on Sunday against the Diamondbacks' Ryan Nelson, who figures to be brought back from the injured list to make that start. From the Padres side of this, Sam, what are kind of the early season storylines with those three guys?
Well, we'll start with Dylan Cease. He's been great. I mean, he had a bit of a tougher outing against what's a great Phillies lineup
Yeah.
over the weekend. All the damage, all the runs scored in that start came with 2 outs. So it really could have been a very different outing for Dylan Cease had he been able to get out of, let's just say, one of those innings before giving up any runs. But look, with the way the Phillies are playing right now, I don't put a ton of stock into anybody that's struggling against them because I think they're that good and their
Yeah.
lineup's that deep. But aside from that start, and his first start of the season, Dylan's been as advertised. He has absolutely been the guy the Padres thought they were getting when they traded for him. He's been really, really, really good and came into that Phillies start with a sub-2 ERA. So he's been exactly what they thought they were getting when they made the trade. So we'll see how he bounces back today against the Diamondbacks after what was a tougher start against the Phillies. But to this point, I think there's no question Cease has been their best starter, and that trade has worked really well so far. As far as Michael King, he was the centerpiece of the Soto deal. He was somebody who was, getting an opportunity in San Diego to do something he had never done, which is be a starting pitcher from the very outset of the season. And sorry
Yeah.
if my video keeps going off here. I'm not sure what's going on. But hopefully you can still hear me.
Yeah.
So for Michael King, he just to put it in context for your viewers, he was obviously a really effective reliever in New York, and then had an opportunity to start at the very end of last year and it was either 9 or 10 starts at the end of the season with the Yankees and was really, really good. And I think from a
Yeah.
stuff perspective, when the trade happened, everybody said Michael King has the stuff to be a really, really good starting pitcher. There's no question about this stuff. Now it's getting an opportunity and learning how to be a starter for the course of a full season. So Michael's doing something he's never done with the Padres this season, which is from the start of a season, be a starting pitcher and throw every 5 days, and also have the understanding he's going to have to do that throughout the course of 162. I think with King, we've seen flashes of what he can be. He's had a couple of starts that have been dominant. He had a start in Milwaukee that was outstanding. He had another one that was outstanding. The problem for King has been the home run ball. He's given up a lot of home runs. The most, at least after his last start, it was the most home runs. Him and Musgrove were 1 and 2 in Major League Baseball in home runs allowed. So he's given up a lot of home runs. That's been by far and away the biggest issue. And quite frankly, I think if he can just figure out a way to limit those home runs, I think he's going to be totally fine, because I think what everybody said about him is definitely true, and we've seen it. The stuff is there, and we've seen a couple of outings where it's on and he's not giving up home runs, and teams don't hit him. The home runs have been the major issue. So that's right now, I think his mission is figuring out how to limit those home runs. And if he can do that, I'm pretty confident that Michael's going to be able to put it together in a really big way here throughout the course of the season, because the stuff is there. And he's a hard worker, and again, I think also is just learning a lot of different things, because he's doing something truly for the first time, coming out of spring training and being a starter. As far as Matt Waldron, I think he's given the Padres what they could have expected out of a number 5 starter. There's been some ups, some downs. There's been some outings where he's given up some early runs, but has found a way to settle in to give you 5 innings, 6 innings. And I think for the most part has done a good job, considering he's the number 5.
Sure.
And has been pretty solid. And he's a little bit unique because he's got this knuckleball, but he's not a traditional knuckleballer, because it's not like he throws it 80% of the time and then throws a fastball and that's it. It's one of his pitches. He throws it 35, 36% of the time entering his last start. So it's part of his pitch mix, but it's not everything he does. So I think, almost in a similar way to King, it's different, but similarity in this sense that I think with Matt Waldron, he only started throwing that knuckleball a few years ago. I think he's still trying to figure out how to use it on any given night. And, is still a relatively young starting pitcher, and I think is still learning about himself as a pitcher, and is still a bit of a work in progress. So, but overall, I think Matt Waldron has done a nice job out of the number 5 spot. I think he's been fine. So, and when I look at, quite honestly, some of the issues with the starting pitching as of late for the Padres, I don't include really Waldron in that conversation, because I think he's given you what you could have probably, wanted, as far as, out of a number 5 starter that is as young as he is. So, he's been all right. And the starting pitching for the Padres as a whole, the last, trip or two through the rotation, it's been tougher, but I do think between Darvish and Musgrove and Cease and King, I put it this way: I don't think we've seen nearly the best out of that group yet this season. And I think, we talk about the big 3 offensively, that big 4, quote unquote, in the rotation. If they can all get it rolling, I think that is as important as anything to this team. And again, I think really adjusts the ceiling of this team in a major way if they can all get it rolling at once.
Well, Sam, Diamondbacks, Padres should be fun to see what happens over the next 3 days. These divisional games are always very important. Certainly expect that both the Diamondbacks and the Padres are going to be in the playoff mix by the end of the season. So yeah, we'll see what happens this weekend. And thanks once again for hopping on.
Absolutely, Jesse. My pleasure. I enjoy chatting with you, and I gotta get a studio like yours. You got snacks behind there. You got bobbleheads, a backdrop. I got to figure out something here in our Odyssey 97.3 The Fan studios here. But thank you for having me on, and appreciate it. And hopefully we have a good series.